Hello aspirants, this is me, Dr. Jagdish Jagtap, and I would like to welcome you all to this podcast on ancient India, and in that we'll study the age of Rig Veda. Now, ancient India is a very much headache-giving topic for many people, so I would like to create some 5-6 podcasts which will complete ancient India in all its entirety. Once you watch these videos, you won't be needed to open any book ever again. So let's get cracking. Today we'll study the age of Rig Veda. Like we will study the Rig Vedic people and their social, economic, and every aspect that they had. So let us first understand that from where did they come. So this is the Russian steppes. So these are the mountains you might have studied in geography. They are called as the steppes. Initially these people stayed over here. From this area, slowly over a period of centuries, they migrated to Central Asia. And from Central Asia, some of them went to Iran, and from there to Turkey, and some of them went to India. In India, this area right from Afghanistan to present day Pakistan to the western borders of Uttar Pradesh, this much area was covered by these Rig Vedic people. So this area was the Sapta Sindhu region, and that is present day Indus, and the Saraswati river, which can be identified with the dry channel in Haryana. So this is the geographical area where the Aryan people lived. So now let us now study the other aspects of their culture. So we have studied the original Homo identity. Now Aryan as such is not a race. Aryan is a common identity based on language, and that language is the Indo-European language group. It includes Sanskrit, Persian, so on and so forth. They were like horse riders. They were well versed with the use of horse, and it was very popular amongst them. The society was male dominated. It was pastoral, and agriculture was secondary. Pastoral means that they were nomadic herders of cattle. The book Rig Veda is our source from which we come to know about all the information about Aryans, and in that the word Arya is repeated many times. So this gives us an idea why they are calling this group of people as Aryans. Now there was a slight difference between Dasa and Dasyu. Dasyus were people who were originally inhabitants of India or of this Sapta Sindhu region, and Dasas were Aryans only, but they had come after Dasyus. Like before the main group of Aryans came, the earlier Aryans who had come, they were called as Dasas, and the original Aryans were called as original inhabitants were called as Dasyus. It's a very technical difference. Even if you do not understand this or remember this, it's okay. It will not hamper your knowledge of the ancient Indian history. Then we have seen the migration path, and it doesn't agree with archaeology. Usually what happens, historians like to trace or verify a path by digging archaeologically. So if we dig archaeologically, this migration path is not justified. So there is a lot of historical debate going on upon the path which I told you just earlier, but that's the only path we have, so we have to believe in that. Then we have earliest inscriptions we can see in Iraq or in Turkey, but we find no inscriptions in India. So Rig Veda is the only source available. And then we understood that they are living in Sapta Sindhu region, and they call the Nadi Tarna or the Saraswati, and it is today's Garhakra channel in Haryana. And they came in waves. Now we can understand the waves here, because originally the Dasyus were living over here, then the Aryans who came earlier, they were called as Dasas, and finally the Aryans whom we call Aryans came. So this is a kind of wave. So they had many tribal conflicts. So these conflicts were either inter or intertribal, and suppose tribe A fought with tribe B, and that is intertribal, and if people in tribe A fought with each other, that is intertribal. Aryans had better arms than the people who were original inhabitants of this place, and they had something called as verman, or like chain armor, like armor they used to wear. That was called verman in Sanskrit. They used chariots mostly with spoked wheels, so this gave them a better mobility and better firepower because they could conquer, move fast, and win faster. We have a reference of a battle of 10 kings on the banks of river Ravi. So there was this river Ravi on which there was this king Sudas of the Bharata clan, and the other 10 kings, of whom 5 were Aryan, 5 were non-Aryan. So we can see that here the allies were not based upon the clans or based upon whether they were Aryan or non-Aryan, but it was based upon more like whose interests were where. Then later on the Bharatas merged with the Purus and formed the Kurus. And this goes on happening, like bigger clans are merging and forming a even bigger tribe. So this process went on. Now let us look at the material life of the Aryans. They were agriculturalists, and we have known that they were pastoralists. Then the agriculture क्यों करेंगे वो? They should do agriculture only for growing fodder. That was their only interest. And they had knowledge of a wooden plow, but their agriculture was very meager at best. Land was not considered property. Cow was considered property. And they had many crafts, like now since they used chariots, so someone must be making the chariot, right? So that was the chariot maker. Then since they were wearing clothes, someone must be making the clothes. That was the weaving craft. And then leather working. अभी the cattle will die, तो उसके leather का कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा ना. So instead of wasting that, they make leather working. So such crafts were there. Then we have metallurgical works also, because the word ayas is mentioned. This implies to bronze, copper from Khetri mines. So they used to work these metals. But we have to remember that iron use was not prominent. They did not have knowledge of iron. No knowledge of iron. This is very important because iron knowledge will come later on. They were pastoral people. They used cattle as property, and they used to give gift like cattle only. Like small boy will get a calf as a gift. Then birthday ko bhi calf. Marriage anniversary also they'll give cows, 10 cows, 100 cows. So that was their gift, idea of gifts. And you can see a very interesting term over here. Gavishti, that is search for cows, was a term used for war. So which means suppose tribe A went in search for cows and they saw a lot of cows belonging to tribe B. So here are cows belonging to tribe B. So they will try to snatch these cows. So that is called as Gavishti or war. So we can understand that like utmost importance that the Aryans gave to their cows as wealth. They had no cities as such. They lived in settlements made with mud fortifications. We have a site here in Bhagwanpura, that is in Haryana, which was populated in around 600 to 1000 BC. So this is approximately the same period which we are talking about, that is the Rig Vedic period. And it has a painted grey kind of pottery along with late Harappan pottery, and there is a mud house probably of a chief, and there are horse bones. So this is important for those who want to study this with angle of history optional, but those who are studying for general studies only, you can conveniently ignore this part, this last point. So let us now look at the tribal polity. Polity is in the sense how the administration was carried on, who was the king and all. So it is a very simple polity. There was a leader. Now you can keep this as a rule of thumb. In every part of history there will be a leader. Even today we have leaders. So there will be a leader. During that time it was a tribal chief. He was called a Rajan. And there were traces of election. He was not hereditary full and formally. There were kinds of election also. His role was that of a protector. Now this is a common sense based answer. Like किसी को leader क्यों बनाएंगे? Why will people make anyone leader? Because he has some power, some skills, and he can protect the tribe. There were other organizations also, like the Sabha, Samiti, Vidhata, Gana. Now this is important because this was a very unique feature of this time, these assemblies, and they used to keep control on this chief, right? So he did not have unlimited power. So just for the sake of understanding, we can compare this with today's parliament. Do not get into the details because there's a lot of difference here, but just for the sake of understanding, there's the certain assembly controlling the government. So here also this assemblies control the chief. We have some other functionaries also, like the Purohit. He was the priest who helped the leader or the tribal chief. And we have this legendary priest called as Vishwamitra, who composed the Gayatri Mantra to expand the Aryan influence. Now one more functionary we have, that is the Senani, and we can infer from his name that what he will do. He'll be in charge of the army, right? Or he'll be with the provider of spears and all. Interestingly, there was no taxman. There is no formal collection of taxes. Then what? How the king got his wealth? That the people gave bali, that is voluntary gift, to the king or to the priests. So there was no formal taxation structure. Even there was no standing army also. Like all the residents, when there was war, able-bodied men will be gathered and they'll form a militia just for the time of war. Once the war is over, they'll go back to their regular business. We have terms like the Vrajapati or the Gramani. Now these terms only signify that these were kind of leaders of their villages or small clans. And there was no civil or territorial administration, as the people were always in state of flux and expanding. You can see they were pastoral people, like nomadic. So they were moving from one place to another. So as such, there was no landed property and there were no ownership of land. So there was no civil or territorial administration. Moving ahead, let us see the social divisions which were present in that society. Now, any social division will arise because of two things. First is they will conquer other people. Or secondly, that the spoils of war will be distributed unequally. For example, suppose 1,000 cows have been captured, and then king takes 900 to himself, of which he gives around 200 to the priest or the Purohit, and this Rajan or tribal chief is taking 700, and then the remaining 100 are giving to all the people, and this goes on for every war. So naturally this tribal chief is going to become very, very rich. Secondly, this Purohit is also going to get rich, and that entire tribe is going to get very little share, and it is going to remain poor. So that is the basis of social division. It is present in every society. Here also it was the same. So because of these two reasons, and during this conquest, they will capture some other tribe people and they will make them slaves. So this is the two reasons why social divisions occurred. Then that got converted into Aryan Varna and Das Varna, because they will capture some people. So the victors were the Aryans, and the losers or those who lost, they became the Dasas or the Dasyus. Now in this context, do not try to imply the meaning which we discussed in the earlier slides of Dasa and Dasyu. That was a very theoretical discussion. In this, you can only remember Dasa as someone who has been vanquished or been defeated or captured. Now we have a very interesting hymn, that is a Purusha Sukta, in the 10th book of Rig Veda. Here it mentions Shudras for the first time in history, and I consider it a very unfortunate hymn, because from this period onwards, from this hymn onwards, this social hierarchy of caste system of India or Varna system of India has come up. So, but opinions aside, this Purusha Sukta hymn, it was the first time that it mentioned that this was Brahma, and from Brahma's mouth came the Brahmanas, from the arms came the Kshatriyas, from the thighs came the Vaishyas, and from the feet came the Shudras. Here we have social hierarchies. We have some warriors, priests, like general people, and the Shudras. But even now, this formal Varna system has not been constituted. It is just a very informal social hierarchy. You have to keep that in mind. There was slavery, but it was domestic slavery, and they were given as gifts, but not used as agricultural laborers. So it was kind of a domestic slavery only. we can see that the tribal elements were strong. Like tribal societies are usually egalitarian. So this tribal element was very strong, and social division based on tax collection and landed property were absent. We saw it here in the earlier slide that there was no as such no formal tax collection. So there and no landed property. So those divisions were not created. And society was largely but not completely egalitarian. Egalitarian means equal. We can see that since there were so many hierarchies, so many varnas like Aryan Varna, Das Varna, warrior, priest, people, Shudra. So such a society cannot be egalitarian. But it was not completely egalitarian. But compared to what happened later on, like the Varna system, the caste system, as compared to that, it was comparatively egalitarian. Now let us see the gods. Now any people or any society will, suppose this is the society, what it will find? It will find its religion in its surrounding, right? This will find its religion in the surrounding. So even the Rig Vedic people found their gods in the surroundings. So they personified forces of nature. They will call people as Agni Dev, Indra Dev, Surya Dev, and they will personify these nature of forces of nature into people or give them like attributes like people. Now you might have seen mythological serials during your childhood. So in that we will have someone called as Surya Dev, and he will be shown like a human being. So that is like giving a human attribute to a force of nature. Similarly, Varun Dev and all. So Indra was the god of rainfall. He was a warlord, and he was the Purandara or the breaker of forts. So he was called upon to lead the people during war. Then we have Agni. So as a force of nature, it was fire, and it was used as for cooking and burning forests. So it was important. Now it was given an attribute like it was said to be the intermediary between people and gods. So they used to prepare one Havan Kunda. Even today we use this. And in this is the fire. And in this fire they'll put all kind of sacrifices, and they'll hope that in the smoke which goes up, this sacrifice will be taken to the gods. So that is how Agni served as an intermediary between people and gods. Then we have Varuna, who symbolized water, and he was the upholder of social order. Then we have the Maruts, who symbolize the storms. We have some female deities also, like Usha and Aditi, who symbolize the sunrise. But in general, female deities are very less in number, and the male deities are dominant. It is to be expected in patriarchal society. There were two modes of worship, that is either by sacrifice or by saying prayers. These prayers were either collective, like all people will come together and say the prayer, or individual. Like in their own personal individual space, they will offer the prayers. The reasons for this prayer was very material reasons. They were like Praja, they would ask for children, preferably sons. Pashu, that is for cattle. Wealth, food, that is very material reasons. They will not ask for very high-ended spirituality like God spiritually enlighten us or uplift us spiritually. They did not ask such things. They only asked for material gains. The sacrifices were very simple. There were no rituals involved. There was no chanting involved, and no sacrificial formula involved in this. So it was a very simple affair, this offering of sacrifices. Thank you. If you want me to continue this series, please write in the comments, and if you have any queries, mention them. I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Have an awesome day. Keep studying.